often say in the book that the healing is not complete until we're living our power.
Right.
Yeah, that means taking aligned action, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable because you're taking aligned action. You're being more courageous now. And it just looks like fear is no longer hindering you, self-sabotage, limiting beliefs and all these things. They're looked at now and it's like, okay, it may not be the friends anymore who are holding me back. Maybe it's within the subconscious mind.
Enemies in their own household.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just looking at your patterns and just knowing that in order to break those patterns, it's going to take consistent motion in a new direction that may be uncomfortable and awkward. And you may not get it and you may not know what to do, but the road appears as you travel it. And living your power will be there. And that's when you're going to say, it was all worth it. Now I get it. Now I get to go help other people who are where I was maybe 5, 10, 15 years ago.
Peace and riches blessings. I am Michael B. Beckwith, the host of Take Back Your Mind. Peace and blessings, everyone, and welcome to Take Back Your Mind. I am the host of this podcast, Michael B. Beckwith, the founder of the Agape International Spiritual Center, and I welcome you. As you know, every week I have someone right here that I get to have a conversation with, someone in their own journey has taken back their own mind, opened up their own heart to make a mighty difference on this planet at this time in human history and beyond. Today, guess who I have? I have Lalah Delia. Welcome.
Thank you, Rev. I'm so delighted to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. Let me tell you a little bit about who she is. This is her book, first of all. It's called Vibrate Higher Daily. And just if you don't know who she is, powerful spiritual writer, certified spiritual practitioner. I want to know about that. Global meditation teacher, best-selling author, and founder of Vibrate Higher Daily School. She guides seekers on transformative journeys towards empowerment, self-realization, and actualization. Through spiritual and conscious development, Lalah's work empowers individuals to transcend limitations, live authentically, and to align with their divine life path, true essence, and higher purpose. She inspires individuals to open up to expansion and vibrational well-being through spiritual writings, meditations, and soulful teachings. She's been featured in podcasts, documentaries, print magazines, and various media. Lalah's work addresses the personal and energetic goals, challenges, and divine opportunities of their inner hero and conduit. Her work is a direct response to her former journey and a nurturing response to the current vibrational state of the world through which we journey daily. Lalah, this is great. This sounds like exactly what I'm up to. Tell us a little bit about your journey.
Wow.
How you got here,
Well,
then I have some other specific questions, but
yes. Okay. Do we want the love and light version or like the dark night of the soul led to the love and light?
Yes. Give me a little bit of how you got here, because everyone has an origin story of something that even broke through, came through, risen from.
Well, I'll say I came from a very spiritual background. My grandmothers were church mothers, elders. I was the child. Take this plate up to Mother Missionary. Run this plate to the. We would have single mothers when they were at work. I would run them up. My grandmother would cook the dinner, and we would share with the community. And so I'd be running plates. And for some reason, I was the chosen one, to do this chore, to go with her on her benevolent missions throughout the community. And I would do that. I would also, my other grandmother on the other side, she had Bible study. When she became up in age, she had Bible study in her home on Wednesday nights for the church mothers. It was all church mothers in here.
Wow.
And they were a good riot. And this was Pentecostal background, so you can imagine.
Right.
Yeah, the energy. And I was the Bible reader. I would read for the elders. And so I was the one reading the Bible. And, but at that time when she told me what I'd be doing, I never picked up a Bible and read it. She had always read it to me. And so at that time, I remember those words just being like, whoa, especially when she would have me read out of Proverbs. I was like, wow, this is like poetry. Like, I was like, I didn't know this was in here, you know?
Right.
And then Psalms.
Right.
I felt myself in a lot of the things I was reading in Psalms and in David, you know, I was like, whoa, I feel like this. Romans, same thing. And because I had began to accumulate some trauma from, like, I would say being misguided, mistreated. There was some sexual assault that had already happened by my middle school age, and a full-on assault that happened in middle school. And so I just had a lot of, and a broken home. My family, my mother and father were divorced at this time, and I did not take it well. And my mother was with a husband who was abusive. So it was a lot
that you came through. That
was contributing to all of that. But I found a lot of solace being around my grandmothers. And one we call her Pug, and the other one, Mama Pug, and Grandma Lalah was who I'm named after. So I'm named after her. And it was something about these women who were just holding space for the community. And I didn't know that they knew that they were also holding space for me.
Right.
I didn't know that. I was just like, these are just my chores. I go with my grandmother here and there. And so, but no, none of the other cousins did this. But I loved it. You know, I really grew to love it.
There's something about you that they saw.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Right.
Yes, it was something. And I think they would see what I light up, like Miss Opie. I talk about Miss Opie in this book. Miss Opie was in her 80s at the time, and my grandmother would go 3 times a day taking meals. And granted, the way I was at my grandmother's house is after school, all the cousins used her address to go to school. So we would all converge after school.
You'd all be in the same school because of this one address.
Yes. And then our parents would all, come to pick us up at grandmother's house after. And she would have been done fed us what they call dinner, and then we go home for supper, like after school. So, but yeah, it was lots of us. But she would take me with her to care for Miss Opie, and she would take meals. And on the weekends when I'd be there, we would do breakfast and lunch and dinner. And I just loved Miss Opie. It was something, I was like, we are soulmates or twin flames in another life. This woman is just, it's something about her. And she was very elderly, but she just was fabulous. And so fast forward, their father is a practicing Buddhist. At the same time, my father.
Mother's Christian, your father's Buddhist.
Yes. And so also what's happening is that we're sometimes holding Sangha in our home. And, I'm watching him chant and, just live his devotion, and that's cool. And we were in South Central Los Angeles for a long time. And I remember the time that we started holding Sangha, we had moved out of South Central to Fox Hills, which is like 2 steps up from living in South Central LA. And he's a transplant from New Mexico. So he was always like, this is liminal, I'm here but I'm moving out. He always had that pursuit of happiness energy about him. And embedded that in me. And I talk a lot about that here because he really was the one to help me understand like vibration and energy and this and that. And he was planting seeds that I needed, because little did I know that my journey was going to take a very, very, very different turn for me. I would say post high school, leading into my early 20s, like I got into a very abusive relationship that was physically abusive, very much. I mean, hospitals and casts and all of that, police being called, shelters and, all the things. And when I finally had enough, and it took a while to have enough. It took me going back and forth, back home. And then this was out in Texas. I moved out there with him, and it was just a lot. And I remember when I had my child at the time, my daughter, India, and India was 2 at this time. This was India's father. And his mother said something to me before, when you're ready, you're going to know. Because I would always say, I'm ready to lead. And she's like, you're not ready. You're not ready, baby. You're not ready.
But she knew her son.
She knew her son.
And she knew at one point it'd be enough is enough.
She was the biggest advocate of me leaving her son. And she was also another like big mama, so I was gravitating to her, like her and I. she tells her granddaughter, which is India, my daughter, stories all the time, how, me and her were like, we used to roll, we were best friends. Like that was my refuge, so to speak, during that time. And she was advocating for me to leave. And she said, when you leave, like, you're not going to care about anything. Because I remember I was like, well, where am I going to pack all this? I have all this. I was thinking all the material things. And I remember just one time, it was about 10 o'clock at night. And I was just like, I don't want any of this. I just want to leave.
Right. You got to the end point.
I got to the end point. I packed the little baby suitcase for India, one suitcase for myself, and we left and went to go to like the nearest motel I could find that I could afford with my, minimum wage paying job at the time. And I just was like, it's freedom. I was happy and I didn't know what to expect next. And as bad as that was, it got even worse after that. I ended up, my car broke down during this time. Boy, my car broke down during this time. I take it to get looked at, to get fixed. And the man who happens to, is young and has like, we used the word at that time, swag. It's so out of date now, I've heard.
People still use it.
Okay, good. Okay. So, and he saw me and he was just like, befriending me. And I just remember feeling like, oh, he's really nice. And he was asking, I didn't know that he was like casing me out and doing the whole thing, but he just so happened to be a predator. And like, long story short, he's like, well, you don't have to pay for your hotel. I'll help you. And I'll help you get a job that makes better money. And I'm like, okay, this is wonderful. He's like, well, it's going to be modeling, And granted, like, my car is in the shop for like 2 weeks. So I'm, we're talking during this time, and he's putting me and my daughter in a better, safer hotel and, bringing us dinner. So I'm thinking this is a friend, an ally.
Right.
And so to speak, it was not, because from that relationship, I ended up just really being brainwashed and pulled into his world, which was stripping and, call girl work and, escorting, all those things. And it was just such a different world than I was used to.
Right.
But he made it so normalized.
Right.
Through just all the things he implanted in my head and the support and, the dollars and the money. And when you're really in survival mode, it was like, oh, maybe I do just got to do what I got to do, like.
Right. Sure.
Yeah, it's the dissonance and all that. So, and I couldn't leave that. That was very abusive, me trying to leave. And that got very, so not only was it abuse again, it was abuse and a lifestyle that I did not choose, but I found myself in. And because I was so, like, in order to do this lifestyle, I was literally having to take Xanax.
Right.
I was just depressed and I was just down spiraling fast. And when I was able to see myself out after about a year of that, and it got to the point where I was like making really good money doing this, running with the best of them, like in the city, like me. Little girl, grandmother Layla's baby, her. Right. And so I was like, okay, I have to do something. And I remember just this background was still in me. I was still yearning to go to church, and I would. And I remember I was listening to gospel radio, and just one morning I was just driving, and there was the radio station that I was listening to opened up the lines for prayer. And I called and I was like, I don't know if you can even help my situation, but I need help. I need to either go back home or I need to get out of the situation I'm in. And I just told it all, that I could within a few, like 1 or 2 minutes. They prayed for me. And I remember literally within 2 weeks, I have a health crisis that has to put me in the hospital for 7 days. And during those 7 days, I get to be away from him in a safe place in the hospital. And I have to have an emergency surgery. But when I'm talking to my sister who's here in LA, she's like, well, I have a healer who's saying you don't have to get the surgery. Don't do it. That this can be healed with herbs. And she's like, please do this, And so I'm like, okay. And so I just tell the surgeon, I'm not going to do this. He's like, okay, well, at least let us just, we can try this experimental medication just to buy you some time.
Right.
He's like, but I really believe you're going to be back in here within 4 months to have the surgery. And I never had to go back, but I got out. went back to this place I had to live in, this home, and took the herbs. By this time, the herbs are there, and I started taking the herbs. And I remember just feeling like really different. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. And what happened is that while I was taking the herbs, it was like a full body detox cleanse, all kind of herbs and powders and things I'd never even heard before. And I was just taking, I couldn't even pronounce at the time some of these things, you know. And I remember what the herbs were also doing. Not only was it working and knitting, it was knitting my mind. Because I was able to come up with a plan to tell my sister she was ready to leave LA. And I was like, well, why don't you come here? We can get an apartment together. I will find the money, you know? So I was stashing on the side. And he didn't know. And I was stashing for my sister to be able to come. And once I got all that ready, I was able to leave. Now, I had to really do it really smooth. Like, he didn't know this was like it, you know. I was like, I'm just going to move here, and my sister's coming, and, you know, I had a daughter, and it, you know, I made it really comfortable for him. And I remember when my sister came, just feeling like peace, like at least a piece of home is here with me.
Yes.
My sister is here. And then when she was here for about 6 months. And the man that she was with at the time lived in Barbados, invited her out. And so she went out to, you know, visit him and ended up staying like a prolonged time. And during that time, I just remember the depression really set in, like even deeper. And it wasn't because she left. It was just, I think I was away and really feeling the weight of where I was. And I just couldn't, I was like, I don't know where to go from here from next. Like, there's just no way I can tell my family. I felt just rock bottom, you know, especially coming from such a religious, spiritual background. And I was depressed to the point, again, taking Xanax and all of this and that. And I attempted to take my life. And my daughter I had planned it all. She was her grandmother. And like, oh, you're spending the weekend, you know, and I was just very depressed, but this was planned. And I wrote letters and everything, just letting her know how sorry I was, and, you know, and how this will ultimately be for the better. Because I knew that if I put her through all of this since the day she was conceived in abuse, brought up in abuse, it looks like my life is still on that trajectory. Like, what am I offering her as a mother? And I just didn't know what to do. And so I woke up after trying to end my life 3 days later. And the first thought was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, I'm still here. And then just having the worst. You
thought you were gone.
I thought I was going to be, well, that's what I thought when going into it. I was like, this is it. You know, I literally wrote letters and everything. And it was no like hesitation, you know, it was like, this is it. And so when I woke up with the worst pain in my head, worst headache of my life, that pain was something else. And I remember feeling like, whoa, okay, I'm not going to attempt that again because this pain is too much. And I was scared to go anywhere, like to a hospital or anywhere, because I knew that they were going to ask, well, what did you do to yourself? You know? And so I just stayed at home and toughed it out for those, you know, I would say, I don't even remember how long it was after that. And I just remember feeling very quickly after that, like, okay, I turned back to God and said, you obviously have a plan for me. And if you help me make it through this and have a different life, I will dedicate. And I heard people say this, and I was like, I'm going to try that prayer. And I did in that moment. And I said, I will turn my life for you. I will do whatever you want me to do. I'm ready now. And
you walked out of that situation then?
Yeah, I slowly. And what happened next, then my lease was up, and this was in 2006. My lease was up, and I was about to move. Well, I did move, and the documentary, The Secret, was out, and you were in the documentary. I don't even remember where I heard about it, but I just remember as soon as I heard it described, I was like, I have to get that. I have to see this. And so I watched it, and you said, where attention goes, energy flows. That became like a mantra to me. I was like, whoa, because I saw that was true, because the more I was giving like the abuse energy, this and that, I was feeling just really bad. But the more I was giving things like when I started finding The Secret and And even before The Secret, I just remember feeling like you have to start, because I would sing in the shower and it would bring me so much joy and peace. And something was telling me, when you're in the shower during that same time that feels peaceful to you, like say prayers to your future self or for your future self. And I started doing that. So when I saw The Secret, I was like, that's what I've been doing.
Right.
And little by little, just things started changing. And I couldn't get enough of all things The Secret at that time. And then just post that, I went back on the herbs, even stronger this time. And it just began to clean me so much to where I was releasing friends now. Like I didn't want any residue from the old lifestyle.
Right.
Pictures, all kind of things that had any type of energy signature to that time. I was strong enough now to release them, not only mentally but physically, not only physically but mentally,
right,
emotionally, all the things. And then my life just started changing. The first thing, some people would be like, oh, you're starting to look a little bohemian. Like my dress, I started reconfiguring.
Right.
And and I think that's a lot of what my journey here looked like. And when I had to piece together what this was, and MySpace was around during that time, and the way I was able to, I'm a writer, and so I created this, and just my devotional heart was still there.
Yes.
And I said, Broken Women's Ministry. And there was a page I created on MySpace that was called that, and it was like so popular, like it just, so many people needed it, and I didn't even realize that. I was just like,
you became the answer to so many people.
I just started doing what I needed to exist. And so many women started relating. And then from there, I just started like writing more on Facebook next, Tumblr next. And then Tumblr is where I really took off as a writer and became, just kind of had a following for my writing. And from there, and this was like the early days of Tumblr. They used to call us Tumblr kids because we were like the ones really getting the app off the ground and in that thing. And then, just from there, everything fast forwarded in my life completely changed and put me on this trajectory here.
To vibrate higher.
So
higher. Where did this come from?
So vibrating higher was literally where I would see myself because I understood, and what helped me was the herbs I was taking, the plant medicine, because I understood that these were restructuring my cells. And I remember hearing Deepak Chopra at the time, and that during this time I became autodidactic. I was reading everything I could. I was listening to tapes, literally listening to tapes.
Tell them what autodidactic means.
So autodidactic is when you're self-taught, and it's when you have a passion to master something on a level to where you do the lessons, you do the work, you stay, you do the time, you put your energy into something enough to learn it to where it could change your life. It's a part of growth mindset, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's a transformation mindset. And I remember this new lifestyle was a new source of fuel and food for me. I couldn't explain it at the time to anyone in my life because they couldn't understand this. And I remember even having an uncle that reached out to me. He was a super, super religious uncle. And he was like, "You've fallen a really long way." Because I was talking about crystals and, herbs and, all these things.
You're off the beaten path.
I'm off the beaten path with it. Yeah. And he was like, "You've fallen a really long way." But today, what, 15, 16, 17 years later, he totally gets it now. So it was like I had to be scrutinized, and in my own way. I love when, Yeshua Christ talks about pick up your cross and follow me.
Yes.
Because that's exactly what I had to do. And it was revolutionary for sure in my family.
Right.
But it was the best decision I ever could have made because I was lost.
Right.
I was lost in the identity that was given to me. I was lost in the lifestyle. Growing up in South Central LA, we glamorized, strippers and this and that.
Right.
But when I was really there, I'm like, oh, I don't really want this like that. I'd rather see it in the videos,
Right.
Like it's too close because I was there in it, around it. And Rev, when I was in it, when I was arrested, my arresting officer said, "You don't belong here."
He knew.
Yeah. And then then that was in booking.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I got sent to my cell, the girls were like, girl, if I look like all this, do you know what I'd be doing? They're like, what are you doing here? But that was, for me, that was God speaking in a way I could hear and understand.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like
Right.
like God was code switching for me to get it, you know?
Right.
And I remember, you know, just the life, that's a whole nother story. Just everything I went through, experiencing, you know, being in that lifestyle, the danger, getting mugged and fighting for my life many times. It was just not what God eventually had for me. And I say in the book that your life doesn't have to end where it may be trying to.
Absolutely.
And that's the goal for me. That's what Vibrating Higher is. And it says here on the back, there's a pathway of higher potential and power that, when honored, transforms your reality and you.
You know, the difference between religion and spirituality often is religious people don't want to go to hell, but spiritual people have already been there.
Oh, wow.
And so
Yes.
you've already been there.
Yeah.
You know what hell is.
Totally.
So because of that, you're able to deal with people's trauma without judgment.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I was pretty wild as a young person as well, you know, and was arrested and all of that. That was because I was selling cannabis sativas back in the day when it was not legal.
Not legal,
You
yeah.
know, and had a very big case against me.
Wow.
And even in that short period of time of lifestyle, I was a very dangerous person, you know, because I was small. I had to take care of business in a very powerful way. But when I woke up, I actually had a spiritual awakening, woke up and got arrested on my last dope deal. Because I told the person, I'm not doing this anymore. This is not my destiny. I got into it to pay for college and to have my own stash.
Yeah.
And the Spirit told me, God told me that I was going to walk free. You know, I got arrested with about 200 pounds, semi-automatic rifles, a whole bunch of stuff.
Wow.
The feds wanted me, the locals wanted me. And the inner voice said, you're walking free. And I believed him. I believed God.
Yeah.
I'm sitting in court reading meditation books. I don't have any interest in the court case because I've already been told I'm free.
Yes.
And my attorney, the assistant to my attorney, was interviewing this police officer, this motorcycle police officer, who wasn't even there. The whole thing, they did a whole lot of illegal stuff, but I'm not going to get into that. And he said, why did you go by Michael Beckwith's house? And he said, well, we got information from an informant that a drug deal was going down, so we got a search warrant, staked out the place. When we saw the drugs being delivered, we arrested him. None of that happened. They all lied. But that's not the important part. Is my assistant attorney jumped up and said, that's hearsay evidence. We invite the informant to come to court, stand before the accused, and identify him. The judge said, we have 3 days to bring the informant. 3 days later, we come back to court, and the prosecutor says the informant is afraid for his life. He won't come. Judge says, Mr. Beckwith, you're free to go. I hope I never see you in my courtroom again.
Whoa.
And I walked out. I went home. There was a weather vane on my neighbor's house pointing in the direction of the wind. And I said, God, if this means what I think it means for my life, I want that weather vane to point in my direction. And before I could finish this, the weather vane pointed right at me. And I fell to my knees and cried and just surrendered my life to God. He says, whatever my destiny, I'm going with God all the way.
Wow.
So, I became a spiritual therapist after a while. But because of walking through that, we have very little judgment about people.
Oh, yeah.
Every saint has a past and every sinner has a future.
Yes.
And
yes.
you're able to hold that.
Yeah.
So you're assisting people wherever they are going through their trauma to help them vibrate higher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you've been to the underworld as we have, it's like, okay, I no longer want to use this preciousness, this path, the spirituality or religion, however you want to name it and label it. I no longer want to use this to condemn people.
Right.
Like, because that's what I saw for me. It's not. And there were even, I remember times, interestingly so, is like, okay, for one, this just keeps jumping out at me because I felt like you probably had this too. I was given safe passage even though I was like like what my grandmother would have said if she knew about this, like just cutting up in the world,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, right.
But I was under, danger seen and unseen.
Yeah.
Just God kept me.
Safe.
But safe.
I felt the same way. I was in a
Right.
lot of very dangerous situations.
Yes.
But untouched.
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 Yeah.
I knew things that I got away from that could have almost taken me out.
Yes.
In hindsight.
Yes. Yeah.
But you're covered by the Spirit.
Covered. That's
Yeah.
what I say. I have, and this is one of my most shared and viral things that have ever been shared. I think when I see it is your grandmother's prayers are still protecting you.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what I say.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is so true. Yeah. Oh, by the way, the assistant attorney's name was Robert Shapiro.
What?
He was a young assistant to Harry Weiss.
Wow.
And he got up and said that. That's hearsay evidence. We demand that,
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Look at that alignment.
Yeah, a young dude.
You had the best of the best.
Absolutely. But I knew.
Yeah.
And when I had that awakening, I was traveling, astral traveling, lucid dreaming. It was so many things I hadn't studied.
Yeah.
But I was involved, and at first I thought I was going crazy.
Yeah.
Then I realized, no, this is a whole nother spiritual dimension.
Wow.
And even today, I have a lot on my plate, but I never complain about anything because I think about what I've been brought through.
Come on.
You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? It's like I got a lot of stuff. I don't care because my life could have been different.
Yeah.
But now I get to serve the Spirit of the living one.
That's it.
And so bring it on.
Bring it on.
Let's do this.
There's a song by Mississippi Mass Choir. I'm Not Tired Yet.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with that one?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's for me. That has been a mantra. Like when I was on my way, like when I was having to build my website and write my book and all the things that now I had on the other side of the healing was, okay, so now you have to have a different capacity. The first capacity was to heal.
Right. Now
the second capacity is to be a conduit.
Right.
Of divine energy.
Right.
And so I came into it just, not knowing that that's a lot to carry. But the more you carry it, the more you're able to carry it.
Yeah, the capacity increases.
The capacity increases. Thank you for that. And so I would listen to the song and I would play it in my home so often. I've been running for Jesus a long time. I'm not tired yet. I've been running for Jesus a long time. I'm not tired yet. So it's like that whole mantra of like being able to integrate background and my upbringing and mind you, I was in the choir like up and through, my childhood, mid-teens, young adult. And so I had songs in me that I could sing. And in the midst of all of this, it's just really dynamic. And I think that people who don't get this side of spirituality really miss out on the way that the divine is working through people like us, because it is just so unconventional. But yet for me, it really represents the grandness of the divine creator. That it's not just this is it and it's never going to expand beyond these teachings.
Right.
But like when I watch you, it's like everything is new every day. Not holding anything, because I still love a good, Bible rocking church, but
sure.
But it's more. Yeah. It's more. I was in the nation before.
So you've been through a lot of different things. Father was a Buddhist, Christian.
Listen,
Nation of Islam.
Nation of Islam.
But you learned something from everywhere you went.
I did. Nation of Islam taught me a lot of discipline, and
discipline.
Coming out of that was the next house I entered into was Islam, because I was like, I learned the teachings, and I was like, oh, this is really good, and I needed structure.
That's exactly
at that time.
That when you have a wild lifestyle, and the nation gives you discipline.
That's it.
And then you can go on after that to something else.
Yes.
But you get that discipline follows you everywhere you go.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that really helped. So I used to joke with people, like on my way, I'm like, people, will talk about organizer. I like organizer. I think it really does work for someone like me, but it just depends on what it is. What's the vibration of the organization?
Absolutely. Because as the old joke is, as Jesus is teaching, the devil comes up and says, "This is really good. Let me organize it for you."
Yes.
You know?
That's it.
Yeah.
Because you want to make sure this is still the main teaching,
Yeah.
Everlasting life.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't feel like life because it's constricting, like what am I supposed to do with that?
Yeah, it's eternal life, forever, never unfolding.
Yeah.
The realm of ever expanding good is at hand.
Yeah.
The kingdom of God is within. Pray for your enemies. Forgive 70 times 7. Bless those that curse you. Pray for those who despitefully you. These are all powerful teachings.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just a way to live a life.
Right.
Tell us about a Vibrate Higher lifestyle. Tell us about your lifestyle. Yeah. But what do you tell people to do on a daily basis?
Yeah, on a daily basis is being able to spend time in solitude before you enter into the world. I often call it a distraction verse. Before you enter into the distraction first, you have a choice.
Yes.
Because before you enter into it, you're somewhere else, and that usually is within yourself. If you notice, and if you take that time. So what that looks like is not checking your phone the first thing.
That's right.
When you get up, in the sunrise, or not checking emails, but really just I challenge others to sit and just solitude and listen, because that's the real information highway. It's like, silence and solitude and just listening. And especially when you wake up, because you're still in theta, the brain waves are really supporting you in receiving information and hearing more than you would ever hear throughout the rest of the day. Maybe journal during that time. It's a perfect time to do your spiritual observances or your devotional time. And so that's what I do. And another thing that I do that I often share is I spend time smiling. Like the first thing that I want my body to feel, my mind, is a smile. And it just feels like a hug.
Yes.
And what it reminds me of is when I first started doing this, I remember when my daughter was a baby, coming to the crib, and when you see a baby, the first thing you do when you see a baby in the morning, they're smiling.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like,
they're still talking to the angels.
They're still right. They're still tapped in. Yeah. And so that was such a powerful example for me.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm gonna bring that in, and it's also a way to reparent yourself.
Right.
In all the ways. Like I never blamed my parents for anything I went through. They did the best they could with everything, all the tools they had. And if anything, had I leaned on them a little more, I believe that I would have had more help. But the way that my cards were set up, and I'm clear now. We know how this goes. We had to go through the underworld.
Yeah. I mean, it's like it's difficult to trust people who haven't gone through stuff.
Yeah.
Because when you go through something, you develop certain things within you.
Yeah.
You learn how to trust the presence.
Right.
You have a level of resilience, renewal, regeneration. And a person, it's like a plant in a hothouse is not going to survive as well as a plant that's grown out in the tough weather.
Yeah.
And so if somebody hasn't gone through stuff, I don't know how they're going to react when something goes down. When the plans don't go your way.
Right.
But people who have gone through stuff have a certain level of deep rootedness and resilience.
In the church, they used to say, you ain't been through nothing. Like, the church mothers, you ain't been through nothing. Like, they want you to stop being like the church mothers that I remember. And these were the mothers. And I'm like, I miss these mothers. But Spirit,
now you are one.
Listen, that's what Spirit told me, Rev. Spirit said, you miss it because that's you. That's your lineage.
Yeah.
You're going to be, you're going to be that. Because I started missing it when my grandmother was transitioned. And I was just like, whoa, and lo and behold, that's one of the main things people say, you have a grandmothering energy, and so that's like, it feels so good. But in the Pentecostal church, they say, when you want blessings from God, that come really poured out, of what you think God has for you, and just be an empty vessel so God can fill you with something that's even better. And I would say that's more aligned to your divine life path.
Yes.
Because your divine life path is this optimal path for you, because we can go many paths as we see, but that divine life path is when you end it all, when it's said and done and you graduate from here, it's going to be to where you're like, I did that.
Right.
I found the path.
Right.
That was the golden ticket, right? And I'm clear that a lot of the reward that sometimes we seek, it's not all here this lifetime.
And this world can't give it to you anyway.
Oh,
This is this illusion.
can't give it and can't take it.
No, it's not. Yeah, can't give it. It's we imprint our innate joy onto it, but we're supposed to come here. I say we're supposed to come here and remember the promise we made to ourselves before we got here.
Yeah.
What we would share, what we would gift, what we would deliver, what we would contribute.
Right.
And what happens, as you indicated, people get caught up in the swirl of the distractosphere.
Yes.
And they think the happiness is there.
Right.
But it's here.
Yeah.
And you have to release it. You said something else I think is worth noting again, the smile.
Yeah.
What most people don't realize is that every time you smile, you release tonic chemicals into the body that amplify your immune system and slow down your aging process.
Yeah.
So just out of vanity, you should smile.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah, but it changes your chemistry of your body,
Yeah.
And so you're asking people to wake up, not jump into the social media. I call it all that stuff. I call it the sea of mental garbage. There's like the sea of mental garbage, and then there's inspiration from the mind of God.
Yeah.
You got to choose.
You got to choose.
So you don't get into the sea of mental garbage. You actually get solitude, introspective, devotional. I call it taking an inner shower. Everybody takes an outer shower, but you want to take your inner shower before you go out into the world. So you're covered.
Yes.
You don't get caught up.
Yes.
And you're able to deliver your gifts and talents and expand your capacity for more life.
Yeah.
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 Beautiful.
I love
Vibrate Higher Daily.
Yes.
And they can still get this book?
Yes, it's available wherever books are sold. There is a Spanish translation, and I believe the Vietnamese is out now.
Really?
And I have a Polish translation as well. Yeah.
So you're in here, you tell people how to live their power.
Yes.
That's one of your phrases.
Oh, yeah, because I often say in the book that the healing is not complete until we're living our power.
Right.
Yeah, that means taking aligned action, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable because you're taking aligned action, you're being more courageous now. And it just looks like fear is no longer hindering you, self-sabotage, limiting beliefs and all these things, they're looked at now and it's like, okay, it may not be the friends anymore who are holding me back. Maybe it's within the subconscious mind.
Enemies in their own household.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just looking at your patterns and just knowing that in order to break those patterns, it's going to take consistent motion in a new direction that may be uncomfortable and awkward. And you may not get it and you may not know what to do, but the road appears as you travel it. And living your power will be there. And that's when you're going to say, it was all worth it. Now I get it. Now I get to go help other people who are where I was maybe 5, 10, 15 years ago.
It's powerful. Obviously, the name of the podcast is Take Back Your Mind. What is your go-to when you've gotten lost in the sauce of the world?
Yeah, solitude.
Solitude.
Yeah, and solitude I practice either through meditation, through walking, through doing yoga, just sitting and literally sometimes just sitting in my bedroom with nothing on and like it's 1993, like no devices, and I'm just in my room just quiet and I'm like, okay, what can I do to put myself in a so I like to use my hands. So what can I do to use my hands? So maybe I start drawing something or I start folding something. With me, I found that it's something connected to when I'm using my hands, or maybe I go prepare a meal that it puts me in such equilibrium and balance again. And so for that, I've loved, I like learning how to draw flowers now. But I those are some things that put me back into my mind. And for sure, just beautiful binaural frequencies as well. Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Hey, this is Lalah. Her book is entitled Vibrate Higher Daily.
Yeah.
You've heard what she's come through. In other words, when you're going through hell, you keep going. Don't build a condo there. She kept going.
Yes, please.
And became a very inspirational teacher to many, many, many people. And she performed at Agape. What was that, a couple of months ago?
Yeah.
Yeah.
With Londrell.
With Londrell. And you may want to go back and check out that particular service. It was very, very good. And we're going to have her back as well. So any last words?
I want to say thank you. You are changing lives. You changed my life. And to see you on The Secret at that time, to have the same skin complexion, at that time, I had never seen anyone talk like you talked. but my father.
Ah,
And so it was, and Earth, Wind, and Fire, because he listened to all of that, all of that spiritual 70s and all of that.
listen. Maurice White was a friend of mine. I did his memorial service. Verdine White's one of my best friends. And something else you said. Yeah. So
they are icons in my heart. This makes so much sense.
yeah.
Yeah.
We used to go to every single Earth, Wind, and Fire concert, because they were, I met Maurice before Earth, Wind, and Fire got big. They were just starting.
Yeah.
I was at a friend of mine's house who was a writer, songwriter, and she said, I want you to meet this guy, Maurice. And he was on like a 40-day fast. And he came out and he was all buzzing. And he said, I've got this group. They're trying to stop me because they think I have too many band members. We're not going to make any money, but we're going to be successful,
Wow.
Yeah. So
this is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And what I love, this makes so much sense. I just have probably scoured everything to watch on them. I always say they're my spiritual fathers.
Yeah.
And but what I love, and you probably know this very well, is they refer to themselves as spiritual teachers.
Yes.
I was like, wow.
Yeah.
I knew it. That's why I connect with their message so much.
Oh yeah, it was deep and powerful.
Yeah, his memoir, Maurice's memoir, is like one of my favorite books.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
He was great. I can tell you a whole bunch
What
of
a
stories.
blessing.
Yeah.
Oh, I look forward to that day.
Yeah.
I want to
Yeah.
know them all.
Yeah.
Wow.
Verdine, his brother's cool. He's beautiful. He's played bass with us here at Agape, and it's great. Anything else crop up?
Yeah, just continue to vibrate higher. I feel like we're going through we're traversing through a time now, and a lot of people are feeling a lot of different ways.
Right.
Depending on vibrational levels, we can receive news updates differently. And so just focus on vibrating higher through it. Even if you don't like it, find what makes you vibrate higher in it. That way you can continue to find higher vibrations in it. And we're still on assignment.
Yes.
We're still in divine assignment, even if you don't like it. I truly believe that what's coming is beautiful, no matter who's in office, because it's not up to them.
They're not God.
They're not God.
God is God.
Period.
The presence is the presence. The living one is the living one. The life is life. One of my favorite statements is the highest vibration always wins.
Yes.
Because thoughts that emerge from a sense of oneness vibrate higher than a thought that emerges from a sense of separation.
Yes.
So the highest vibration is always going to win.
Yes.
So as you're saying, we have to maintain that.
Right.
Regardless of what it looks like.
Yes.
You can have a few moments of venting and grieving and all of that.
Yeah.
But eventually you got to get back up, vibrate higher as you're teaching, hold that vision, and then walk in that direction.
Yeah.
And life will meet you right there.
Yeah. I love it. And I love when you teach about the vibratory frequency.
Yeah.
Like that is just so powerful. And the way you in particular teach that, it's like that's so much of what we need right now.
Yeah.
Because we're still trying to manifest things and heal, and don't fold now. We've come too far.
This is our time.
Yeah.
Because, the arc of the unfoldment, 40 years ago, this was all woo-woo. Now it's science.
Yes, period. Yeah.
So this is our time.
Yeah. I heard someone say that quantum physics is the way that scientists prove spirituality.
Absolutely. I have a friend of mine that, she was telling some of her girlfriends, because they were trying to find good men. And she said, go to the quantum science conferences.
Wow.
She says, all those guys are going so much deep investigation into nothing. They're bumping into God, and they're becoming deeply spiritual. Don't go to the church. Go to quantum science.
Listen. Now, I know that was a word for somebody listening right now. I love that, though. I love it, because I do feel like it's an alignment.
Oh, absolutely.
Like if we're going to the same places thinking that we are going to meet new people,
right?
Like it just doesn't work. And I think that's a lot of the frustration too, because again, like be comfortable with getting uncomfortable, putting yourselves in, these environments that help you build new brain circuitry.
Yes.
Like, you know what I mean? Like this is so important. Like we have to expand. We have to, because it's all on the other side of expansion. Everything we're looking for.
Everything. Now, I feel you're a spiritual optimist and have a lot of hope. Today, what gives you hope?
That I still have breath. And since I still have breath every day, I mean, it literally, I'm living on that prayer when I said, if you get me through this, I will do whatever you want me to do.
Mm-hmm.
So every day when I wake up, I literally cannot, it's like it's embedded in me now.
Mm-hmm.
It's the program.
Right.
And so I'm just grateful to be here. And it's given me joy. It's given me hope. It's given me direction to continue to do this work. And I continue to do it no matter who likes it, who doesn't like it, who comes, who goes, because I know I have found my divine life path.
Yes.
And I'm so encouraged and so passionate to help others do that, because I know what it's like not to be on that path. So I have an online school, and
tell us about that.
Yeah, it's Vibrate Higher Daily School,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like a monthly membership where we do all this work. Basically,
Mm-hmm.
we learn how to get on our divine life path, because a lot of times we're trying to pick up the pieces from a life that we didn't sign up for, we think.
Right,
So we
right,
think.
Right.
And we don't know what to do. And I meet you in the what now.
Right.
Right. That's where my work comes in. Okay. Like, now what? So here's what we do now. Here's how we pick up the pieces and vibrate higher from here. And that's all Vibrate Higher Daily is like, wherever you find yourself, we're going to vibrate higher from there. Not meaning that you're perfect. It means that, because imperfections are beauty, you know,
Yeah,
like,
sure.
like they're just gorgeous. And so we vibrate higher from there. And one of the things that one of my members, I think this was like maybe our class we had last week. I was like, yeah, you know, most high. I was like, but what's the difference? What's the opposite of most high? Do you know what she said?
What's that?
Most low. I never heard of most low. I said, thank you today.
Mm-hmm.
So see, when you put yourself in community and when you continue to grow, like, all these things just come out. In our community, they're like, we're just a bunch of fun.
Right.
Because, you know, it's
joy
like,
is the evidence of God. Yeah.
Yes, we're in our joy, and it's a very welcoming place where we can let our hair down. Like, we have to be able to go somewhere, and I talk about this in the book. Like, there has to be a place where we can go and say, this is my life, help me with it.
Yes.
Because we didn't all have that. We don't all have that. And so that's what my writing, my work, all of that does in the world. And I've been grateful to bring writing and metaphysics, quantum physics, spirituality, and just realness into distilling it into a way that I had never seen before, and I didn't realize I was doing until it got kind of labeled this way. But yeah, I'm just grateful that whatever I've been through, that I have been able to do something that has been able to make the Most High feel like I'm on the right path.
Right. The Most High is coming through you.
Yeah, a conduit.
How can they find you?
Yeah, at vibratehigherdaily.com, and also at Lalah Delia, all across the interwebs.
Very good. That's Lalah Delia. Vibrate Higher Daily as a way of living.
Yes.
Thank you for tuning in. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Dynamic blessings to you. This is the portion of our Take Back Your Mind podcast where we take a moment for sacred solitude. Remember those 4 S's: stillness, silence, sacred solitude. You can begin a whole new life when you become still, silent, and enter into your sacred solitude, your fortress of sacred solitude. We're going to do a contemplation today on a deep feeling tone. And that feeling tone will be the feeling tone of the miracles that have happened in your life. Those moments in your life where maybe you thought you weren't going to make it, but then something happened and you got a reprieve. Something happened and a miracle showed up. Something happened and a way was made when you thought there wasn't a way being made. And the subsequent feeling tone of that, sometimes that's called grace. Sometimes it's called a miracle. Sometimes it's called an answered prayer. But we've all experienced them at times in our life. What we want to do is be able to feel what that feels like so that we become a vibrational match for more of that grace, the total givingness of the living one to flow into our life. So close your outer eye, tap at the space between your eyebrows, and just say, I am willing to see without the use of my eyes. I am seeing with my awareness, my consciousness. Place your hands on your lap facing upward as a sign of receptivity. Thumb and forefinger touching as a mudra of transcending the personal mind, the egoic perception, or any sense of separation. Just take a deep breath through the nose. Blow it out through the mouth. Another breath. Out. Another breath. Out. Turn within. Pull your attention away from the world of effects, the world of appearances. And strike the mystic chord of memory for any moment in your life where you were surprised at how things turned out. It was a glad surprise. It was grace, a miracle. Something turned out better than you thought it possibly could. And you didn't do it, but you became the recipient of it. So just scan your life and think about a moment or such moments. And when you find that moment, it doesn't have to be monumental. It could be something that your mind may say, well, that was a small thing. It doesn't matter. Something turned out better than you thought. Your back was against the wall and an answer came. Now, with your attention, embrace the feeling of that glad surprise. Embrace the feeling of that sense of grace, that answered prayer, the feeling of it. Now, with every breath, you're giving yourself permission to allow that feeling tone to expand. Every time you breathe, there's an expansion of your awareness and the feeling of that tone of glad surprise. You're contemplating this feeling. What does that glad surprise feel like? What does that miraculous moment feel like? Place your attention on it and watch it expand, get bigger, more potent. You're becoming a vibrational match for more good than you can imagine now. This energy is flowing where your attention is going, expanding. Stillness, silence, sacred solitude contemplation of the feeling tone of the glad surprise. Stillness, silence, sacred solitude, expansion of the feeling tone of the moment of miracle, glad surprise. You're contemplating the feeling tone, but you're releasing the incident, just the tone. And here, we give thanks for more and more and more and more of the all good to flow through our life right now. We give it ultimate permission for the beauty and the love, the harmony, the intelligence to live through us now. There's a vibrational match, and more good unfolds. It's happening now. And so it is. Amen. Peace and blessings. I truly hope that you are enjoying Take Back Your Mind podcast. The Take Back Your Mind podcast is sponsored primarily by the Agape International Spiritual Center. In other words, everything that you see in terms of the staff that puts this together, the editing, the equipment, all of this is sponsored by our Agape International Spiritual Center. So if you are enjoying the podcast, I'm inviting you to support the sponsor. Support Agape. Simply go to agapelive.com and make a donation. And say in the donation that you are supporting the podcast. It allows us to keep broadcasting. It allows us to keep putting these magnificent moments together with these wonderful people that I get to interview. We keep having the possibility of updating the equipment that's necessary and providing the wonderful content that many of you are writing in and saying, I really love the podcast. Support the podcast. Support the sponsor. Agape International Spiritual Center. agapelive.com. You can also text to donate. You can text the word give to 424-321-6243 and put podcast so that we know that you're really supporting this wonderful podcast. Our secondary sponsor is Adaptozen, Adaptozen. This is my superfood greens. It's nutritionally dense because I teach spirit, mind, and body. We want our body temples to be healthy. So one of the products is my superfood greens. You can go to nutrarise.com. Those three little lines you see, you hit those three little lines and you'll see Adaptozen. There's two products, my superfood greens and a product called Elevate, which are organic mushrooms for your health. You can put both in your smoothies so that you have main ingredients for the health of your body temple. These are our sponsors. Primary sponsor, Agape International Spiritual Center. Secondary sponsor, Adaptozen. I want you to be healthy. I want you to be wise. Circulate and share. Peace and blessings. Your time is very valuable, so I want to thank you for lending us your ear and participating in taking back your mind. If you want to submit a question for the question of the week, please submit it to podcast@michaelbeckwith.com. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, please submit a review and let us know your thoughts. Stay on top of current episodes by subscribing to the podcast so that you'll receive alerts and not miss one single episode. And feel free to share this podcast with all of your friends and family. And until we meet again, take back your mind, and you will take back your life. Peace and blessings.